Hi, my name is Ann Baker from Essence Health, and I am doing a series of videos about the Enneagram. This is an introduction to the Enneagram. So if you follow along with each video, you'll get kind of the big picture. So this is the second one, and today we're going to be covering a brief history. We're going to talk a little bit about some science related to the Enneagram. And we're going to talk about the symbol. So here we go. Actually, yeah, before we get into that, I wanted to address how to find your type. A lot of people ask about that right from the start. So there's a lot of great descriptions on books and websites. So doing videos like, workshops, introduction workshops. I was trained in something called the Enneagram spectrum of personality styles. So you can Google that. That the test is the WEPS, WEPS. The Enneagram Institute has a really good one. The narrative, there's a lot of good ones. The good ones will cost a little bit, but you'll get a lot of information. So, but a couple of points, I really suggest sitting with the results. Oftentimes we can think we're a type because it's actually difficult to own our own defenses and shadow aspects. So if there's not a little bit of a cringe, you may not have found your number. You could sign up for a daily Enneagram email from the Enneagram Institute based on what type you think you are, or maybe you are, and you get daily messages, and that really helps to see if that really resonates. And you can always schedule a one-on-one consult. You can message me for more information about that. Okay, so what is the Enneagram? First of all, it's a map or tool for personal growth, spiritual growth, psychological growth that describes the 9 basic patterns of personality. We talked about that in the last video a little bit more. So these 9 patterns are like wearing different glasses. They become very different lenses through which you actually take in information and participate in life. So these 9 patterns really affect the way you're perceiving and experiencing the world. You know how you can have an experience with a group of people and everybody has kind of a different takeaway, or they respond differently, or maybe you were born in a family with some siblings and you're like, oh my gosh, how could we be from the same parents or something? So the Enneagram, really, the types can explain that. So within each of those 9, I kind of talk about them as styles or types, so I interchange that. They represent different motivations, different values, different desires, and different core fears. So, and that's going to make your behavior, your relationships very different from one type to the next. So the symbolic elements of the symbol, which I'll show you in a couple of slides, I think oh yeah, well, the first slide had the picture of the symbol. Those elements can be traced back to ancient times. And the elements were synthesized from a lot of different ancient wisdom traditions and then later through some psychological systems. And there were a few main historical players that did this. So we'll talk about that with the next slide. But the modern system, what we think of as the Enneagram, is pretty new. It just came together in the 1970s. And 1994 was actually the first international Enneagram conference. And it wasn't applied to business settings until the late 90s. So it's fairly new, and now it's just exploded. It's all over the place. A lot of books been published, a lot of workshops, a lot of, business-based conferences and workshops, and also in various religious and spiritual settings. And there's a new book that was published by a team of psychologists, neuroscientists, and Enneagram experts that linked the 9 types to temperament and aspects of the nervous system. And I'll put the name of that book and the authors in the discussion, in the content of the video on YouTube. So that's exciting. And they're saying it's not scientific proof, but we're giving it validation, and they're hoping that more people study it in the scientific community. But linking temperament and the nervous system to personality, I think, is a really good start. So the history of the Enneagram, there's no clear, definitive history. There's a little bit of mystery about how it developed. There's two major players, is George Gurdjieff and Oscar Ichazo. And Gurdjieff was, he was very interested in getting to the essence of universal truths, and he was a spiritual teacher, and he used the Enneagram symbol, but he didn't write anything down. It was he had these movements and principles, and was a dynamic teacher, and there's some books about him. Oscar Ichazo, around a similar time, did a similar quest as far as looking at a lot of the ancient wisdom traditions from all over the world. They both did that. And they looked at esoteric Sufism, Christianity, Judaism, and came up with, so Oscar Ichazo came up with the closest, what we have today as the Enneagram. And then he started teaching it, and Claudio Naranjo picked it up and, developed more of the psychological aspect. Ichazo did too, but he really kind of fleshed it out. So here's a little bit of a time, the recent history with some of the main players. My teacher was Jerry Wagner. So you can see Oscar Ichazo taught Claudio Naranjo. Then there was a small group of Naranjo students who then they all wrote books and started teaching. And so my teacher, Jerry Wagner, is there. So the slide was from my class. So the U is me. So you'd be in the next little box underneath. All right. So Don Riso here, he's the one that really wrote out the levels of development. And in the book with Russ Hudson, The Wisdom of the Enneagram, they really talk about that. Okay, so we're going to talk about the symbol. So in Greek, Ennea means simply 9, and gramma means chart. So you could have an Enneagram of a lot of different things. This happens to be the Enneagram of personality. You could have an Enneagram of all the divine essence qualities. So it's emphasized that it is a dynamic symbol based on the laws of the universe. So that sounds pretty lofty, but dynamic is really meaning that it's implied to have growth and change as part of the symbol. So the circle that is containing the other symbols is representative of wholeness and unity. So and completion. So the idea is that within all of us, we have all of these qualities within us. We tend to just emphasize one, but we can find unity through embracing all of the essence qualities of all the numbers. And we get into trouble, suffering, the ego gets distorted when we just rely on one. So then there's the triangle and the law of three. So you'll see the numbers 9, 6, and 3 are connected by this inner triangle. And Gurdjieff talked a lot about the law of three. So the idea is that the identity of anything is really the result of three interacting forces. There's a lot of teachings about this where you have two opposites, and you have a synthesis of these opposites. So you have, this like black, the color black, and then the color white. Well, you synthesize these and you're going to get gray. So you can see a lot of conflict in the world right now is because of this dual system. We tend to not see in those shades of gray. We get stuck in one way or the other. We do that individually. We're doing it collectively. So the law of three is really about learning or creating something that's even greater or different than the two opposing forces. The other symbol is the hexad, which is the symbol that goes from 5, 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, and around. And that's a symbol of movement. And within that movement, our personality, as we grow, as we're growing, as we're evolving, we move and we can pick up traits and the styles of other numbers. But when we're really stressed out and we're not functioning at a higher level, we can devolve and we can take on the less healthy traits of the numbers. So there's predictable patterns for each number, how each number moves around the circle. We're going to talk about that in another video. So in essence, we are really not a fixed type, but rather we are always in a process of growth and evolution. So nothing is static. We're always in a process of becoming. And this is, I think, why people get really into studying about this, because we learn that there are these amazing patterns. And there's different triangles that connect three numbers all the way around. So 1, 7, and 4 create a triangle. 8, 2, and 5 can create another triangle. And you'll find that just the quality you need to balance out maybe your ego pattern that maybe gives you a lot of trouble is contained within one of these numbers within your triangle. Okay, so that's it for this video. We'll see you next time. I'm going to put reflection questions in the content, in the written content in the video. Okay. See you next time.